Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 241 based on novel. So let's start. At the aft of the ship, God Kai she lifted up heaven's suppressing floor, and the treasures in the floor shone brightly. Divine weapons flew out to block down the rain of 1,000,000 arrows. And at this moment, those fire crow gods opened up their vermilion red bottle gourds, and the divine fire of the sun poured out from the bottle gourd to rush at the flying ship, shrouding the entire ship in a split second. Kai she roared and threw up heaven's suppressing floor. Heaven's suppressing floor instantly became incomparably huge, and hung in the sky above the flying ship. Under the roof of the building, huge bells started ringing and vibrated the divine fire, making the fire unable to come close to the ship. Those fire crows gods took this chance to rush up onto the ship, and suddenly, 6 divine knives flew out from heaven's suppressing floor. Kai she wielded the divine knives, and he moved as though he was flying, going one round around the entire ship in not even a breath's time. Swinging his knives repeatedly, dozens of heads fell onto the ground. And at this moment, several hundred fire crow gods came flapping their wings over, and the arrows were becoming incomparably concentrated as they fired off in unison. Kai she executed heaven's suppressing floor again, but there were numerous divine weapons that got shot down and fell onto the deck. The power of heaven's suppressing floor was greatly reduced. Even though this was a remarkable treasure that suppressed the palace, Kai she's cultivation still wasn't enough to unleash the true power of this treasure. Several hundred fire crow gods opened up their bottle gourds, and divine fire came spewing over. Behind them were several thousand fire crow gods that were closing in rapidly. First Ancestor frowned. These fire crow gods were clearly using the battle formations used in war, and since Kai she was only an executioner of Crimson Light era, he didn't have any experience in dealing with battle formation, as he never went onto the battlefield before. On the other hand, First Ancestor was also an army deserter on the battlefield, and even though he had learned methods to deal with battle formations before, he had never used any of the methods before. He also had no experience against the battle formation of the fire crow gods. Both of them were slightly at a loss. The bunch of fire crows gods first shot a rain of arrows before setting fire to burn the ship, tiring Kai she out from trying to guard this and that. While he was trying to block the attacks of the fire crow gods on this side, the fire crow gods on the other side reached and started attacking the wings of the ship. There were also numerous fire crows that came to the bottom of the flying ship and grabbed onto the ship to fly backward, planning to drag the ship away. Some fire crows then flew to the masts and tried to break off the masts. God Kai she was truly frantic, and he shouted, "Dao friend, this is a fire crow formation, I can't break it, come and reinforce me." First Ancestor Human Emperor was also helpless. He had never faced such a kind of situation before. The fire crow army of several thousand made him felt no matter how he dealt with each other, there was no way to stop the outcome of the flying ship being destroyed. Qin Mu opened the window and he shouted, "First Ancestor, Heaven and Earth Mudra, revolving heaven turning earth and unchanging heart." First Ancestor Human Emperor came to his senses, and his hands crossed each other to execute his heaven and earth mudra skills. Instantly, space shifted, and when his mudra burst forth, this entire flying ship became heaven and earth. Sometimes, the heaven was above and the earth was below, while sometimes the heaven was below and the earth was above. The speed of the fire crows was astonishing to begin with, and no one would find the chance to attack them. Now that all of these fire crow gods were situated in a space, they started to fall everywhere. Bunch of fire crows spun around without end, and the flying ship shook them off. God Kai she was also giddy from being thrown around, and he hurriedly hugged onto a mast in shock. Qin Mu shouted, "Go up the mast." First Ancestor Human Emperor leaped up and landed on the mast with one leg. Qin Mu's voice came from the building. Sun coiling around mid-heaven flows forever. First ancestor human emperor immediately executed this move from heaven and earth mudra, and instantly, the space rotated and countless fire crow gods were moved by the power of his mudra skills. They tried to stabilize their bodies, but they were pulled apart by a terrifying force, making them cawed loudly. A flood of fire crows formed around first ancestor human emperor, and they swirled furiously around him. What's next? First ancestor human emperor asked loudly. Qin Mu's voice rang out. Collapse of heaven and earth sorrow autumn phoenix. First ancestor human emperor instantly executed this mudra, and the heaven fell and earth rended. Terrifying force field was collapsing towards him palm, and the fire crow gods that filled the sky was moved by his palm force. They collided with one another in midair to pile up into a huge round ball. Opening pure land with 8 trigrams and the heaven and earth, determining 5 elements of earth, water, wind, fire. First ancestor human emperor executed these 2 mudra skills without thinking. With 2 mudras in 4 palms, the 8 trigrams and heaven-earth diagram squashed the ball of flesh formed by the thousands of fire crow gods in the center. Next, fire, water, wind and earth burst forth, and the power of the fire elements snapped the bones and tendons of countless fire crows. Their bodies were vibrated into pieces, crushed into pieces, sliced into pieces and incinerated. Next, as a gust blew over, the thousands of fire crows turned into dust to fly behind the ship. First ancestor human emperor was stunned for a moment, and he couldn't believe what he had done. I've broken the formation. And at this moment, Ling Yuxiu and Pan Gong Tso's astonished cry came from the building, and first ancestor human emperor was alarmed. He hurriedly dropped down to have a look and saw a fire crow god that had escaped from his heaven and earth mudra tunneling into the window of the building. When Qin Mu had guided him to break the formation, he had opened the window, and this fire crow god must have taken the chance to slip through the window, planning to lay his hands on Qin Mu and the rest. First ancestor human emperor hurriedly rushed in before he could even rush into the window. 2 trails of blood light burst forth from inside, and they had an incomparably terrifying air of murder. First ancestor hurriedly moved back in a hurry. The fire crow god in the building had its head severed. Qin Mu carried the case and stood there in a daze. He seemed to still be at shock at the power of God execution mysterious knife. First ancestor hurriedly rushed in and touched him everywhere while asking worriedly, did it attack you in return? If your head chopped off? He was frightened as he raised a trembling finger. He wanted to push Qin Mu's head, but he was scared a gentle push might cause Qin Mu's head to fall off his neck. Suddenly, Qin Mu smacked his hand away and praised. What a powerful case, what a powerful sword. Seeing that Qin Mu was unharmed, first ancestor let out a sigh of relief and instructed earnestly, this knife is dangerous. It's made from the head of an emperor's throne strong practitioner, so it's best if you don't use it when you don't need to. Ling Yuxiu still had not recovered from the shock, and was touching her body. She only became at ease after she realized her head was still on. At the same time, Pan Gong Tso was also touching his head. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief, when he realized it didn't drop off. Ah, what a waste. I didn't take the opportunity to slay Grandmaster. Qin Mu returned the case to his Daotai sack. He squatted down to examine the corpse of the fire crow god, and he saw that the place where the head was cut off had no blood stains. His blood had entirely vanished, as though the blood were cleanly absorbed in an instant, turning him into 2 chunks of dried corpse. It's indeed a dangerous and malevolent weapon. Qin Mu felt his heart palpitating and his muscles twitching. As long as one gets hit by the knife, there's no possibility of survival. The most terrifying thing is that if this divine knife didn't hit the opponent, it would most likely turn to chop its owner. But it's also pretty useful, slaying a god, just like chopping vegetables. First ancestor human emperor was puzzled, and he asked, I didn't see you cultivating my mudra skills, so why are you so skilled in them that you can even guide me, the founder of these skills? Qin Mu stood up and stretched his back. He said with a smile, I have the overlord body, that's why I master everything I learn instantly. First ancestor human emperor's expression turned dim, and he gave off a depressed air. Qin Mu hurriedly said, even though I didn't cultivate directly, I have gone through it over 1,000 times in my mind. First ancestor, your mudra skills ain't bad, but you lack experience against battle formations. I feel I can teach you how to charge, and break through enemy lines, and break the formation in the fastest speed. As for breaking through formations, I've learned quite a lot from my grandpa blind, and I've been through quite a number of battles as well. First ancestor heard his explanation, and became even more depressed. You teaching me? He was like a squashed eggplant that became dispirited and miserable. Qin Mu said, to break a formation, you need to consider everyone else beneath you. The fire crow formation earlier looked very powerful, and the 4,800 fire crow gods caused the formation skill to transform continuously. When you attack the head, the tail strikes, and when you attack the tail, the head strikes. When you get caught in this formation, you would be overwhelmed and won't be able to lock onto one enemy. At that point, you need to treat them as numbers, a total of 4,800 numbers. When these numbers change their positions, you can soon see through the formation. First ancestor human emperor's interest was sparked. He recalled the fight earlier, and the fire crow formation appeared in his mind. When he replaced the fire crow gods with numbers, the marvel of this battle formation was seen through by him. In this case, fire crow formation would have a rule to abide by. The changes in their formation are too fast. They have a kind of telepathy to communicate with one another, causing the flaw in their formation to only flicker in an instant. How do I break this formation? First ancestor human emperor soon discovered something was wrong, and he sought knowledge sincerely. Qin Mu slowly guided him. Which move did I tell you to destroy the formation? Revolving heaven, turning earth, and unchanging heart. First ancestor came to a realization and said with a smile, when the world spins, space messes up and the numbers are thrown into disorder, so the formation is broken as well. I see it now. Qin Mu smiled. Do you understand now? Disciple und. First ancestor human emperor suddenly came to his senses and hurriedly shut his mouth. His face reddening, he raised his sleeves to cover his face. Qin Mu's explanation had subconsciously made him feel as though a teacher was giving him pointers and slowly guiding him. This made him automatically say the phrase disciple understands. Luckily, he reacted fast and didn't complete this phrase. She cleaned the ship and kept the treasures that had been struck on the ground. He threw the corpses of the fire crow gods off the ship and walked over. Fire crow gods have a strange kind of telepathy that allows them to contact one another even at an extremely long distance. Since these fire crow gods have found us, this means that Great Sun Sovereign isn't far away. The rest of the fire crow gods won't be able to catch up to us, but Great Sun Sovereign definitely can. We need to leave immediately. Qin Mu walked on the deck and looked behind. He saw that the fire crows, who had been thrown out by first ancestor human emperor, were still chasing relentlessly, but this time, they couldn't borrow the sun to increase their speed. As a result, the distance between them and the ship was gradually growing. Abandon the ship. Qin Mu suddenly said, let's fly to some place where the fire crow gods can't see us, then we can take another ship to leave. We need to abandon this ship before we attract Great Sun Sovereign's attention. Do we have any other ship? Shi shook his head, and first ancestor human emperor did likewise. Senior Shi, you knew there would be enemies pursuing us, so why didn't you prepare another ship? For example, if I refine poison, I would prepare another set for emergencies. Qin Mu shook his head and said, You guys are too inexperienced in handling matters. Pan Gong so hurriedly took out a small booklet and wrote down these words from Qin Mu while thinking to himself, the more I know about him, the easier it is to deal with him. Kai Shi said, my Crimson Light God dynasty has been destroyed, and it's already impressive to even have such a ship left. First ancestor human emperor pondered and said, we cannot abandon the ship. We can only fight. Even though Great Sun Sovereign is powerful, we aren't ordinary as well. We have a chance to shake Great Sun Sovereign off if we injure him. Kai Shi was slightly hesitant. First ancestor's performance earlier clearly showed that he had never gone to a battlefield before. He was at a loss when facing the battle formation, and even got lectured by Qin Mu. Of course, Kai Shi wasn't a general, so he didn't know how to deal with the battle formation as well. If it weren't for Qin Mu, who had experienced numerous battles, and was skilled in First Ancestor Human Emperor's technique and divine arts, just the Fire Crow formation alone would probably make them upset and discouraged. Great Sun Sovereign was a famous god, and he had honed himself to perfection over centuries. If they got caught up by him, it would probably be hard to defend against him with First Ancestor and Kai Shi's abilities. All of a sudden, Ling Yuxiu said, look at that sun. Everyone on the ship looked at once, and they saw that the sun was transforming. A strange transformation was happening to the sun. The surface of the sun was collapsing inwardly, forming layers over layers of complicated rings that clasped inwards. Looking at it in detail, the rings were formation markings formed from complicated runes. After a short while, an exceptionally complex formation was formed from the outer surface up to the inside. When the markings contracted, a huge pupil could be seen from far away. Great Sun Sovereign is here. Kai Shi croaked. His nervousness was beyond compare. First Ancestor Human Emperor took in a deep breath and stood at the stern of the ship. He said solemnly, I might not be unable to beat him if it's a one-on-one. Since we can't escape the pursuit of Great Sun Sovereign, we might as well injure him heavily and scare him away. Qin Mu looked at the sun that was transforming continuously, and he couldn't help being stunned. Suddenly, he took out his sun jade eye and examined it. He then looked at the sun and cried out, the person coming is really Great Sun Sovereign. Definitely Great Sun Sovereign. Kai Shi placed heaven-suppressing floor in the sky above the flying ship. He rushed into the building, heading straight to the topmost floor, and took down the important treasure. He said seriously, other than him, no one else has the power to mobilize the power of the sun. Qin Mu's consciousness was a little messed up as he muttered, but why is the formation structure in Sun Jade Eye almost the same with the formation structure of this sun? This Jade Eye is a treasure from High Emperor era, and Great Sun Sovereign should have existed during Dragon Han era, right? So why is he executing the formation skill of High Emperor era? Ling Yuxiu said, Great Sun Sovereign has been through High Emperor era, so he can learn their formation divine arts. What's surprising about it? No, that's not right. Qin Mu shook his head. Divine arts rely on the path, and after one's technique is determined, one would basically continue forward on their own path. No matter how much they learned about others' divine arts, they would never reach the peak. Grandmaster is an example. Pan Gong Tso's fury couldn't be contained as he shouted, Qin brat, can you think about others' feelings when giving examples? You and I are on the same ship after all. Grandmaster originally cultivates shaman spells, and he is a rare great master in shaman spells. His cultivation in the soul and the primordial spirit is also rare in this world. However, he got distracted and went to learn Dao Sex Dao Sword, Great Thunderclap Monastery's Dharma, Heavenly Saint Cult's techniques, and Little Jade Capital's technique. So his abilities are all half-baked. Qin Mu made his deduction and said, if I'm Great Sun Sovereign, I would learn the formation skills of High Emperor era, but I would change it to make it most suitable for me. But this great Sun Sovereign didn't change anything, so this isn't logical. Besides, I heard from Senior Kai Shi and First Ancestor that he is a god born from the sun, and that's even more impossible for him to learn the divine arts of High Emperor era. He couldn't learn it at all. Ling Yuxiu was confused. Why won't he be able to learn it? They are born from the sun, and the great Tao in his body had already been fixed. Meanwhile, reform starts with changing the divine arts. Changing the divine arts changes the law, and changing the law changes the path. When the paths, skills, and divine arts change, the great Tao will change as well. Qin Mu explained further, the great Tao in Great Sun Sovereign will never change, and he naturally wouldn't be able to learn the paths, skills, and divine arts that have already been changed. It's like Earth Count. Earth Count is also a pre-celestial god, so he shouldn't be able to learn King Yama's paths, skills, and divine arts. From a great distance, the formation of the sun had already been formed. A thick beam of light broke out all of a sudden from the restraint of space, and shone towards the flying ship. When that beam of light passed through a star, the star was instantly pierced, and a huge hole appeared on it. This power was countless times stronger than the power of Sun Jade Eye. On the stern of the ship, First Ancestor Human Emperor and Kai Shi were extremely nervous, while Qin Mu was just walking to and fro as he plucked the hair under his chin. If my guess is correct, this great Sun Sovereign isn't the original Sun Sovereign. He's merely a god of High Emperor era. In that case, where has the true great Sun Sovereign gone to? First Ancestor, can you get some of Great Sun Sovereign's blood so I can research it? Kai Shi was flustered and exasperated at the same time. It's not bad at all if we could protect our lives. First Ancestor Human Emperor shouted, hide in the cabin. Quickly. Qin Mu sprinted towards the cabin while Ling Yuxiu stood on it. Pan Gongtse was about to lock Qin Mu outside, but Ling Yuxiu grabbed him by the neck and smashed him on the ground. Qin Mu quickly rushed into the cabin, and just as he was about to close the door, he heard a loud bang. Violent tremors came over and threw the three of them up into the air, colliding here and there. On the stern, First Ancestor Human Emperor unsheathed the sword from his waist and executed all of his magic power to slash down. Jade Brightness sword expanded and broke through the intense light, but it was instantly scorched red hot. First Ancestor was forced to retreat continuously. Meanwhile, Kai Shi executed the treasure that suppressed the heaven-suppressing flaw. They were 6 divine swords, and they slashed at the divine light. His abilities weren't enough, but the power of these 6 divine swords was too strong, forcefully raising his abilities by a huge chunk. The two of them allied together, and they finally blocked the power from the Sun Divine Eye. The intense flames and divine rays were split into 2 by both of them, causing those flames and rays to graze the sides of the ship. They left behind 2 long traces that shone brightly. Right at this moment, the flying ship came to an abrupt stop. A bird head and human body god with 3 legs had ridden over on the divine light and landed on the stern of the ship. He was none other than Great Sun Sovereign. Inside the cabin, Qin Mu hollered, First Ancestor, remember to get some of his blood. Stop talking. First Ancestor couldn't help but feel frustrated. The remaining survivors of 2 dynasties are actually on this ancient ship. Great Sun Sovereign's physique was very tall and sturdy, and he was like a huge bird perched on the ship. His 3 eyes opened as he looked down, tilting his bird head toward Kai Shi and First Ancestor Human Emperor. He then looked at the building curiously and said with a smile, after capturing you guys, I will be able to find the way to Carefree Village, taking down all of the remaining survivors in one go. This is truly effortless. Who was the one that wanted my blood? Me? Qin Mu opened the window and raised his hands. Sun Sovereign, it's me. I'm here. Great Sun Sovereign smiled at him. You are already dead. Qin Mu hurriedly touched his body and realized he was still okay. I'm still alive and well. How am I dead? Great Sun Sovereign said leisurely, in my eyes, you brats are already dead. Only these two friends that dare to fight against me will be spared, and that's because I want to find Carefree Village and the floating world. Without any warning, Pan Gong Tso rushed forward and closed the windows with a loud bang. The window was pushed open again, and Qin Mu popped his head out with a smile. But we are clearly still alive. Great Sun Sovereign's pupils contracted, and he sneered. You will die very soon. Bang. Pan Gong Tso closed the window again. The window creaked open once more, and Qin Mu popped his head out. Then why do you say we're already dead? We're clearly still able to talk, laugh, and jump around, so your words don't make any sense. Great Sun Sovereign frowned and flames burst forth from his 3 eyes. He wanted to kill this brat now. Qin Mu promptly closed the window. His laughter was heard from the cabin. He thought I would be scared shitless, but he got speechless from just a couple of sentences from me. Look at his face turning green. More voices even came from inside the cabin. Lord Qin. Grandpa Qin. Please stop talking, okay? I'm begging you. He even used his eyeballs to stare at me. Stop talking. Grandmaster, even if you kneel and beg me, he will not let you off. So why don't you just scold until you're satisfied? Before the divine rays from Great Sun Sovereign's eyes even shot out, First Ancestor Human Emperor slashed down at him with one sword. Great Sun Sovereign raised a claw to parry this sword, and said with a smile, sloppy sword skills. When his sharp claw blocked the sword, his expression changed slightly. He hurriedly pulled back his claw, and the divine light in his eyes shot towards First Ancestor's sword. He said coldly, the sword is a good sword though. His claws got almost severed by Jade Brightness' sword, and he was lucky he pulled them back just in time. First Ancestor swung his sword back into its sheath and used Heaven and Earth Mudra to block the power of the 3 gazes. On the other side, God Kai Shi rushed at him. 6 sword lights danced, bearing down on Great Sun Sovereign along with the heaven-suppressing floor behind him. Great Sun Sovereign received First Ancestor Human Emperor's Mudra skill with a bare hand. He gave off a look of astonishment as Kai Shi pounced over, and he immediately flapped his wings to avoid the sword lights and the heaven-suppressing floor. First Ancestor Human Emperor and Kai Shi leaped out of the flying ship, fighting Great Sun Sovereign fiercely in the starry sky. Great Sun Sovereign opened his wings, and numerous fire crow gods flew out from them, flapping their wings toward the flying ship. He smirked and said, little ones in the cabin, you guys can die now. The moment these fire crow gods landed on the flying ship, they immediately charged at the cabin. However, the door suddenly opened, and Qin Mu stood at the center with a case in his hands. Behind him, Pan Gong Tso and Ling Yuxiu quickly closed their eyes and didn't dare to look. They only heard a soft sound, and suddenly, overflowing fierce aura burst forth as though some bloodthirsty existence had awakened and wanted to eat people. The jade-like head in the case suddenly opened its eyes and revealed a look of excitement. The membranes behind the head that were connected to the case opened up like a fan and vibrated rapidly. 2 beams of blood light shot out from the eyes of this head and swept randomly like roaming dragons. An ominous silence fell over the ship. The several hundred fire crow gods that were about to attack paused, standing motionlessly on the spot. When the 2 beams of light retracted and gradually sank back inside, Qin Mu closed the case. The dense scent of blood almost knocked Qin Mu out, and this made his heart jump. A burping sound came from the case, and he didn't know if it was just a hallucination. Meanwhile, outside the cabin, those fire crow gods were still frozen on the spot. Suddenly, the pulses from First Ancestor Human Emperor, Kai Shi, and Great Sun Sovereign's divine arts came over, causing their heads and bodies to become separated. Their heads slid off their necks and fell to the ground. Thumping sounds rang out as the corpses collapsed at once. The one that herds cows, there's an air of blood around you. Ling Yuxiu opened her eyes, and saw instantly a blood-red fog coiling around Qin Mu. Qin Mu was taken aback. He lowered his head to look at his body, and he saw a faintly discernible fog that floated around him. This red fog was like gas, but he couldn't feel it. They could be seen, however, with the naked eye. It was indeed a strange thing. You are plagued by the air of blood, Cult Master Qin. You are fortunate. Pan Gongtso smiled. You have killed a lot of gods. There are several hundreds of them, right? Their spirits have latched onto you, so you will definitely die. Qin Mu acted as though he wanted to open the case, and Pan Gongtso's expression changed drastically. He escaped in a hurry. This air of blood should belong to the case, so why is it plaguing me instead? If I don't feed it, will I be the next one to die? Qin Mu felt uneasy. He also couldn't see what was going on with this air of blood, but he could faintly feel a connection between it and the case. Suddenly, the air of blood became like dense smoke as it tunneled into the heart of his brows. The air of blood went into his third eye, and soon, it got absorbed. A burp came from his third eye. Qin Mu tilted his head to the side. A burp came from the case, and a burp also came from his eye. There were indeed a lot of weird things happening in this world. In the world inside Qin Mu's third eye, a sinister voice rang out. Who dares to steal my food? That brat is a ration I've taken a liking to. You actually dare to steal my blood, fiends. I'm going to eat you. Qin Fengqing sucked this air of blood like a noodle and gave a burp. He then swung his fist at the sky and roared, How dare you act fierce toward me? As soon as I escape from this place, I'll smash you into a pulp and eat you. In the starry sky outside the ship, a massive battle had erupted. The flying ship was pushed further and further away by the pulses of their divine arts. During the fight between Great Sun Sovereign, First Ancestor, and Kai Shi, the latter had 1,000-storied heaven-suppressing floor above his head while wielding 6 swords. His corporeal body divine art was incomparably strong, and he was exceptionally fierce when he fought. On top of that, Qin Mu's eye power couldn't clearly see the speed of Kai Shi's attacks. He was extremely fast. This person had 3 heads and 6 arms. His 6 swords were all top-notch divine weapons, and his battle method was wild. The speed of his close combat abilities was beyond compare. His abilities were inferior to Great Sun Sovereign and First Ancestor human emperors, so he could only rely on his heaven-suppressing floor to be able to block Great Sun Sovereign's attacks. A body with 3 heads and 6 arms was definitely the strongest corporeal body. For an ordinary person, having 1 more arm would bring about a massive change. One could master even more techniques. Every additional arm would accumulate and multiply the power of each attack, and his 3 heads and 6 arms had completely developed all the methods of close combat. Qin Mu walked out of the cabin and stood at the stern of the ship. He couldn't help sighing, and he exclaimed inwardly, Crimson Light Era doesn't have a lot of attainments in divine arts, but their attainments in their corporeal bodies were truly astonishing. Every increase in an arm, or a head, was equivalent to adding another move on the 14 basic sword moves. Looks like we underestimated the Anusrava fighting god technique that Pan Gongtso is cultivating. In Great Ruins, they saw god statues with numerous heads and arms. Crimson Light Era must have inspired the corporeal body techniques that these gods with 3 heads and 6 arms had cultivated. From this, one could imagine how high the attainments in corporeal body were during Crimson Light Era. However, more than half of Great Sun Sovereign's power was still focused on First Ancestor Human Emperor. The first time the two of them clashed, Sun Sovereign instantly felt the astonishing power of First Ancestor. First ancestor human emperor's mudra skills could take on his attacks, and this made him feel threatened. As for Kai Shi, even though he caused him a lot of trouble, his battle power was far from first ancestor. Great Sun Sovereign's battle methods also opened Qin Mu's horizons. This god's 3 legs were all bird legs that had sharp claws. In space, the sharp claws were like the sharpest weapons, and he had no trouble splitting mountains and rocks. He also had 2 wings that flapped loudly. They moved extremely fast, enabling him to move around in all directions, and they could slash down like divine knives splitting the sky. Furthermore, they even had endless fire energy. This pair of wings vibrated as he moved here and there. This made Great Sun Sovereign's moving speed extremely fast. It was so fast that Kai Shi and Fire Ancestor couldn't catch up with him. Aside from wings, he had 2 arms and hands, and the latter executed divine arts. Whenever a mudra was executed, a sun would leap out of his palm and explode. Flames would fill the space like small suns. In addition to those body parts, his beak was also a mighty weapon. When he pecked down, he could definitely poke holes in First Ancestor and Kai Shi's head if they weren't able to dodge it. What was even more terrifying was his 3 eyes. The formation skill hidden in those eyes could shoot out divine light similar to sun jade eyes when activated, and the power was countless times stronger. Kai Shi's 3 heads and 6 arms made his battle methods extremely complicated, and Great Sun Sovereign's battle methods were no inferior too. With his great pair of wings, his body moved like lightning. His claws, wings, hands, beak, and eyes were all in sync to deliver the perfect blows to First Ancestor and Kai Shi. After a while, he covered both of them with injuries. If this continues, First Ancestor and Kai Shi will die under his hands. Qin Mu's eyes became dazzled. He wanted to open the small case and use God Execution mysterious knife to assist them, but their speed was too fast. Great Sun Sovereign's speed, in particular, was even higher than First Ancestor and Kai Shi's, so releasing the divine knife would probably slay First Ancestor or Kai Shi instead. Of course, there was also the possibility that it couldn't hit any one of them, and the knife would turn to Qin Mu instead. Suddenly, Great Sun Sovereign flew above Kai Shi's head, and his 3 claws grabbed the 1,000-storied heaven-suppressing floor. He lifted this building and threw it far away. Crap! Qin Mu was shocked. The color drained from Kai Shi's face as he saw Great Sun Sovereign's wings slashing down at him. He hurriedly blocked with his 6 swords and received this attack. His body tumbled, and he got struck into the dark space below them. At the same time, First Ancestor Human Emperor struck 1 mudra on the back of Great Sun Sovereign's heart. Layers of feathers tunneled out from Great Sun Sovereign's back and blocked this mudra of his. However, he still coughed up blood despite his successful block. His head turned around, and he opened his mouth to spew out the Sun Divine Fire. Sun Divine Fire descended from the sky like a waterfall, and at the same time, sharp divine rays from his 3 gazes also shot out. First Ancestor Human Emperor's expression turned dim, and his depressed aura became denser and denser. Great Sun Sovereign suddenly felt a dangerous atmosphere, and the divine feathers on his body stood up on their ends. He endured taking a palm from First Ancestor Human Emperor, just to strike Kai Shi away. He wanted to fight First Ancestor alone. First Ancestor's abilities were the strongest, so only by getting rid of him could he achieve complete victory. However, it was apparent that First Ancestor got hold of the upper hand now. He immediately decided to use his final move. Qin Mu looked from afar, and his expression was grim. He said in a low voice, "The first form of 3 forms of overturning heaven, collapse of heaven, disappearance of earth." First Ancestor Human Emperor's 3 forms of overturning heaven were the 3 moves that Qin Mu had never mastered. It wasn't because Qin Mu's comprehension wasn't enough. It was because these 3 mudra skills need one to have the courage to die with heaven and earth. Qin Mu couldn't do it. On the flying ship, Qin Mu saw the starry sky becoming bright as a radiant celestial heavens appeared under First Ancestor's feet. As the sun and moon rose, the stars shone gorgeously before the sky collapsed. The sun and moon were destroyed, and the stars fell like rain. The destruction of heaven and earth actually looked so beautiful and heroic at that moment. Qin Mu's expression changed drastically. He carried the case and turned back to run in no time. When he dashed toward the cabin, Ling Yuxiu had already opened the door, and she was about to step out. A few moments ago, she plucked up her courage and decided to go outside to look at the situation. Without any explanation, Qin Mu ran straight at her and threw her onto his shoulder, carrying her like a sack of potatoes as he rushed inside the cabin. Boom! Terrifying vibrations came over, and both of them were thrown up high to the ceiling. The flying ship spun furiously, and creaking sounds came from the body of the ship. Snapping sounds could also be heard. Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu's blood ran cold. This important treasure of Crimson Light era could break apart at any time. This video will end here.